Didn't invite my best friend's mentally ill wife to my wedding. Now our friendship is over and I'm learning to set boundaries. I'm getting married in December, and my partner and I are planning a mid-sized celebration about 75 people from our social, family, and professional circles. I'm 33 years old, my partner is 34, and then there's my best friend from university, Anna, who is 34 as well. Anna's wife, Bernice, is 48. We're all here in Canada. Anna and I have always been close, ever since those chaotic university days. She's divorced, with 2 kids, and has been married to Bernice for 5 years now. Bernice, though loving Anna seems to be where her engagement with the world stops. She's proudly and perpetually unemployed, and no matter the occasion, she arrives in a skin-bearing crop top and a pencil skirt that doesn't fit, never dressed for the moment, never self-aware. Bernice has exactly 2 topics she brings to every conversation: alien abductions, and the 2008 video game sensation, Lego Indiana Jones. Try to steer the discussion anywhere else, and you might as well be talking to a wall unless Bernice senses sexual interest. Then, almost as if by magic, she snaps into focus and starts asking direct and distinctly awkward questions about sex, irrespective of who's on the receiving end. Unsurprisingly, I've never known anyone to take Bernice up on her offers, likely owing as much to her unwashed, unkempt presence as to everything else about her. I've watched her try this at birthday parties, during game nights, grocery store trips, even school events. Nobody has ever barred Bernice from joining in social events. She participates fully, even if she makes things difficult. It's not hard to tell that Bernice is neurodivergent, but instead of using that as an opportunity to build connections, she wields it as a badge of specialness. She has no desire to change. If anything, she's lately been fixated on whether she might have dissociative identity disorder. That, too, appears to be going nowhere. The thing is, Anna is happy, or so she tells me, and I trust her. She's direct about loving Bernice and her commitment to their family. I have no reason to think she's making a mistake there. She's been very straightforward with me about the reality of her relationship, and I try to accept it. But, truthfully, I can't stand being around Bernice for more than 5 minutes. It makes seeing Anna nearly impossible, since Bernice clings to her so tightly that it's like having a third child in tow whenever we meet up. To Anna's credit, she knows how I feel. She's sad that we can't all socialize together, but she's never guilted me or made me feel bad about my version. I love Anna's 2 kids, and I can't imagine my wedding without them or her by my side. But the thought of Bernice mingling with my colleagues and friends, of her latching on to a conversation or propositioning someone, makes my stomach twist into knots. I agonized over how to handle it. I wanted to approach Anna honestly, maybe underlining that it was about boundaries, about the way Bernice makes people uncomfortable. But was it fair to allow other guests a +1 and not Anna? I wrestled with a decision, but at the end of the day, I knew I couldn't have Bernice at my wedding. Now, we're married, and the wedding was everything I hoped for: beautiful, meaningful, filled with love. And, I now realize, liberating. When it was all over, and when I finally talked to Anna, the relief I felt at not having to manage Bernice's presence or dread her making a scene was immense. We'd already had so many moving pieces to juggle. Taking Bernice out of that equation was a gift to myself. I tried to be as fair and kind as possible when talking to Anna afterward. I focused on concrete experiences, not feelings. Anna just sent a thumbs up emoji in response, and that was it. We haven't spoken since, and I doubt we ever will. Bernice, for her part, messaged me separately, something like, "Oh well, I know people think I'm annoying, I thought you'd understand." I didn't write back. It was a moment of reflection for me. Anna had been my best friend for so long, but so much of our friendship became about managing the fallout from her codependent marriage. In the aftermath, I realized how much emotional weight lifted the moment that dynamic ended, how accustomed I'd become to problem-solving her issues because she hadn't had a functional adult partner with whom to share the load. I loved Anna, and I even loved helping her, but the role I played was outsized, and in the end, it bred resentment. Now, I'm mindful of the friendships I still have and how I show up in each relationship. I pay close attention to the dynamics with friends, significant others, and my own boundaries. Some friendships can't be salvaged, but each one leaves a lesson. In this, I hope, will make my remaining relationships healthier, lighter, and more meaningful. I thought about everything that happened for over 2 years before realizing how much I owed an update and a little clarity on the whole situation. I know this is incredibly late, but I genuinely didn't realize anyone still remembered what happened after the initial stuff was removed. Once I found out the story was still circulating, I felt I should add the context and clarity that had been missing. Here's what's changed most recently: my 2025 update. Through the grapevine, someone from my old university circle reached out. They told me that one of Anna's children has become estranged from her and now lives with an aunt. Anna herself is now in what can only be described as a full-time BDSM slave relationship with Bernice, and it's obvious enough that even just an acquaintance could pick up on it immediately. The dad has been out of the picture for years, so after he left, it had always been just Anna and the kids, at least until Bernice entered the scene. I haven't had any communication with Anna, Bernice, or the kids since then. I also heard that Bernice took a partner who's about 25 years younger than she is, and, to my knowledge, this person is also her full-time slave girl. There are a few things I want to clarify and elaborate about the situation, now that I've had a lot more distance and perspective. First of all, yes, Bernice is trans. And here's the plot twist: I'm also a trans woman. My anxiety around being potentially transphobic towards another trans person, especially one with a background of mental illness, kept me up at night. That's really where that fear stemmed from. This was never about a picture-perfect, neurotypical, hetero fairytale wedding where the only strange detail was the trans boogeyman. That's not what happened. Next, about the clothes Bernice wore to my wedding, this had nothing to do with her passing or not passing, having hair or being bald. Quite simply, the clothes she chose didn't fit, they weren't remotely appropriate for the season or the occasion, and she didn't shower. If she hadn't acted like such a pain, honestly, I would have been happy to take her dress shopping myself and pay for the outfit. I feel like basic hygiene and adhering to a dress code are the lowest bars of entry for a wedding, and I truly don't believe I was being unreasonable. I didn't care about forcing a color scheme or expecting guests to spend big money. If anyone else wasn't up to par, I didn't bat an eye. My grandpa literally showed up in a t-shirt, and plenty of friends got a little too tipsy and accidentally knocked over a vase of flowers. I didn't care. My friends apologized, cleaned up, my grandpa was charming to everyone. It really was about Bernice as a person. About how I informed Anna, sending her a text was absolutely not my first choice. I should mention I made multiple attempts to get together in person and discuss the wedding directly. Every time I suggested it, Anna's response was, "Great, when can Bernice and I come over?" Whenever I asked to meet her alone, and told her it was about Bernice, she refused. She consistently refused to discuss Bernice and the wedding at all if it meant being alone. I have to believe she saw this conversation coming and was deep in denial. In the end, texting was literally the only way left to communicate my message. Email wasn't an option. They shared a damn email account. Even now, I occasionally wonder if I should have involved Bernice in the discussion or just gone through with the conversation in person, no matter how awkward. That brings me to another point when I said, she leverages neurodivergence as a means of asserting how special she is, instead of using it as a pathway to improve her relationships and sense of self. That was, unfortunately, literal, not a judgment I was making. In every conversation, she would talk about getting fired after just a week at a job, or some awkward encounter at the grocery store, and the story's moral would always be, it's because they are able, it's because I'm autistic, or obviously you don't understand why I ask random people to have sex with me, I communicate directly, and you should educate yourself about autism. I'm neurodivergent. So is my husband. But Bernice is the exact stereotype, the rare 1% of people who take every meaningful part of being marginalized and turn it into a weapon. Most neurodivergent people are absolutely functional, but Bernice isn't. She's a person, and I treated her as such, even though I really, truly disliked her. It's valid for me to have boundaries. As for the conversation, I know exactly how it would have gone. As soon as I tried to set a boundary, something like, here's what I need from you to attend my wedding, or I'll have to ask you not to attend, it would immediately turn into, you hate me because I'm autistic, with no self-reflection, no personal accountability. I never asked her to hide or suppress her transness. I asked her to suppress the truly dangerous, off-putting, and uncomfortable aspects of her personality. Sometimes I still wonder if I could have handled things differently. But given the path things have taken, I think it's clear that these problems ran a lot deeper than a single wedding or a single conversation. Update 2. Neurodivergence isn't a mental illness. Autism isn't a mental illness. But with Bernice, I always sensed there was something more going on, something I couldn't exactly pinpoint, but her behavior sometimes felt more in line with mental illness than just neurodivergence. I know now I should have been clearer about what I meant. Let me share what I mean by center my concrete experiences. One weekend, Anna agreed to dog sit for me, and she brought Bernice along. At some point, Bernice decided to let them out for a walk. My two dogs were lost for nearly the entire day. Anna apologized profusely and went into a panic searching for them. I could tell she genuinely cared. Bernice, on the other hand, shrugged it off, saying it was an honest mistake and how she always let her dogs out and they always came back. Then there was the dinner party we hosted for some friends. I made 2 roast chickens and meticulously carved them up, breast, leg, thigh, the works. Bernice swooped in, Took 4 of the choice pieces for herself, and I ended up splitting a small piece with my then boyfriend, now husband. She ate it, turned to me, and remarked, "It's fine, but here's how I would have cooked it." There was no gratitude, only condescension. Another time, Bernice and Anna stopped by for a quick visit. While I was catching up with Anna's kids, Bernice wandered into my kitchen, cracked open a brand new, unopened bottle of wine, poured herself a glass right to the brim, and then offered Anna, a designated driver, a glass too. Anna declined, of course. One memorable afternoon, I met Anna at a park with her kids and another family. Bernice, who apparently had the day off, crashed our get-together, sat down in front of these little kids, and started loudly talking about how she bought Anna a ball gag and how good it looked. I had to step in and told her point blank to stop discussing kink in front of minors. She dismissed it as a special interest. Each time something happened, I confronted them directly as I saw fit. I forgave the chicken incident. I made it clear that kink talk around kids was not on. The dog debacle left me furious, but because this was at the start of Bernice's drama, and Anna sprang into action right away, I forgave her. But I can't stress enough, it's not like I was collecting grievances because I'm some villain. I went out of my way to help Anna. When her car broke down and she was stuck getting to work, I wired her money. I always sent her kids gifts and never missed a birthday. I cheered from the front row at their T-ball games when I could. Whenever Anna struggled issues with her kid's dad, trouble at work, general life chaos, I was right there to offer a listening ear and emotional support. She did that for me, too, but once Bernice entered the picture, it dwindled away. I never intruded or overstepped in Anna's life. There was never any jealousy. Anna and I were never romantic or sexual in any way. Being validated for how I wrote this was cathartic. This whole ordeal was traumatic. You people think I wanted to isolate a nearly lifelong friend? A fellow trans woman, no less? Ending this friendship destroyed me. The wedding was just the breaking point. If it hadn't been that, something else, maybe a funeral, or a birthday, or another explosion, would have eventually forced my hand. There's only so much a person can take. And to be fair to Bernice, no innuendo here, she and Anna were in an open and ethical relationship. Anna always knew Bernice liked to seek out new partners. But turning ordinary social events into swinger mixers? That wasn't ethical. But at least Bernice wasn't a cheater. Still, I could never understand why Anna tolerated or encouraged Bernice's constant flirting. Bernice was confrontational and abrasive whenever someone voiced an opinion she didn't like, even in small groups, even in conversations she wasn't part of. Sports, politics, celebrities, food, she had opinions on all of it, but only 2 actual interests. At events, if someone made an offhand comment, say, "Lego Indiana Jones sucks and I like Bernice's least favorite video game," she'd get in their face, shouting about it, then justify her outburst with autism. And let me be clear, shouting was not a euphemism. She was loud. To this day, I still don't understand why I seem to be the only one in our friend group willing to call out Bernice's behavior. Maybe other friends felt uncomfortable, but kept silent. I genuinely wanted her to be included. I tried. Nobody enjoys being the bitch about their friend's significant other. I went out of my way to welcome Bernice, get to know her. But this friendship ended after years of headaches, and Anna more than Bernice was the slow-burning fuse. Recently, something made me think of Anna again. I found my older brother's old Wii, dusted it off, and played some Lego Indiana Jones. It was actually a blast. In a better world, I would have enjoyed telling Bernice that it was a fun game. Now that I've sat down and reflected on all of this, I can't shake the feeling Bernice might actually be narcissistic. Update 3. 2 months ago, at 1:17 a.m. A text from an unknown number lit up my phone. "Hi. You don't know me. I'm Kitten. I think you know Bernice. I need help." For a minute I thought it was a prank, or a trap. Then a send message came in, a photo of a collar tag engraved with a name that wasn't hers and a selfie that showed a split lip, already scabbed over. I sat up in bed, heart pounding, and woke my husband. I didn't answer immediately. I called a crisis line I'd bookmarked years ago and asked them, point blank, what I should and shouldn't do. They connected me to a local, trans-inclusive shelter with a spot open that night. I wrote back, carefully, "I'm not getting in a car to pick you up, I'm not meeting you alone. I can't help you call a shelter. I can sit at a Tim Hortons across the street if you want someone in your eye line while you talk to them. That's it." We met the next day, early afternoon, at a Tim's attached to a gas station off the highway. I sat in a corner booth with my husband pretending to scroll beside me. She was smaller than I expected, in a hoodie despite the heat, with that hunched posture I used to have when I didn't want to be seen. She introduced herself with her real name and then apologized for breaking protocol by using it. Her hand shook when she lifted her cup. Every time the door chimed, She flinched. "This is going to sound insane," she said. "She keeps our IDs. Mine's in a binder in her office. We only get them when we have to vote or go to the clinic." She told me she hadn't been allowed to work in months. When her hormones ran low, Bernice decided it was a growth opportunity to wean off external validation. She used those phrases verbatim, like she'd been handed a script. She showed me a photo of their living room, Anna's couch shoved to the side, a spanking bench in the center like a coffee table, bowls on the floor labeled, again, with names that weren't theirs. She told me Anna called Bernice ma'am, even in front of the kids. She told me not to be angry at Anna. I wasn't there to judge, and I kept saying it. I handed her the shelter's number and slid my phone across the table so she could make the call without her history popping up later. She cried quietly while she waited on hold and stared at the Timbits case like it could swallow her. The intake worker on the other end was calm and competent in a way that made both of us breathe easier. 30 minutes later a cab pulled up, and the driver asked for me by name because the shelter had booked it under my account. I watched the car merge into traffic until it disappeared behind a delivery truck. That was it. I went home and shook for 3 hours. 40 minutes after the cab left, Anna called me. I hadn't heard her voice in years. She said my name like it hurt. "You can't do this," she said. The words came out in a whisper and then, sharper, "You can't steal our property." I didn't argue. "She's an adult," I said. "She asked for help. She's safe." Anna started to cry and then someone in the room with her, Bernice, I didn't need to be told, said something I couldn't make out, and the call dropped. 5 minutes later, a text from a different number, "You are a petty tyrant. We will be pursuing legal action for kidnapping." I blocked it and saved a screenshot. Kidnapping. A grown woman with a bus pass who got in a cab she called herself. A week after that, I spotted Bernice at Pride. I hadn't gone in years, but our friends were staffing a sober space and asked if we could cover a shift. Bernice was stationed near a kink vendor's booth, lurid as always, mesh top, mini skirt, collar with a bell, and she was pressing printed contracts into strangers' hands, the kind of thing you can find on Reddit, full of rules about bathroom breaks and silence. I watched her zero in on a baby queer with glitter on their cheeks and the look of someone who had just come out on their lunch break. A volunteer intervened, gently at first, then firmer, and then security arrived when Bernice began to shout about consent literacy and autistic directness. For once, nobody flinched at the words. The vendor, who I know for a fact enforces consent like a religion, told her she was banned from their events. Bernice hurled the stack of contracts onto the pavement and accused them of kink shaming. She didn't look special. She just looked small and mean. I wish I could tell you that was the last of it. 2 days later, a CAS worker left a message on our home phone asking if I could confirm I had no current contact with the children and whether I would be willing to provide a statement about historical concerns. The words sat like a rock in my throat. I called back, told them the truth, gave them the aunt's number I had from years back in case it helped. I didn't embellish. I stuck to what I had seen, not what I had heard. When I hung up, I cried in the shower until the water ran cold. I didn't want to be back in it. I also didn't want to be useless. What surprised me most happened quietly. Kitten, she's using her real name now, and I won't write it here, texted me from a pay-as-you-go number 2 weeks after the shelter pickup. I got my ID back. The shelter helped me do it. I start work next Tuesday. Then, another, "Thank you for not making me explain what ethical was supposed to mean." She didn't ask for anything else. I didn't offer anything else. That was the deal I made with myself. I still check my phone at 1:17 a.m. More nights than I care to admit. And Anna, this is going to sound ridiculous, but I saw her at the grocery store. It was 10 p.m. Fluorescent lights, the idol with the sesame oil and coconut milk. She had a hoodie pulled up and no makeup, and she looked normal. Not collared. Not flanked by Bernice. She looked at me, really looked, like she was cataloging the details of my face the way you do when you're about to say goodbye. We stood there, a full cart separating us. She opened her mouth and then closed it. Finally, she said, "Your hair looks nice." I said, "Thanks." We both laughed, stupidly, like teenagers. Then she gripped the handle of her cart hard enough that her knuckles went white and said, so quietly I almost missed it, I didn't know how to stop it without breaking everything. I wanted to say 1,000 things. I said, "You don't have to explain it to me." She nodded. "I'm trying," she said, and wiped her eyes with the cuff of her sleeve. We didn't hug. We didn't exchange numbers. She walked away, and I let her. I'm not interested in diagnosing anyone anymore. I don't need another label to hang on what I saw. It was control dressed up as liberation. It was a script that erased the person reading it. I keep thinking about that first text, the trembling insistence on a fake name, and how small it made an entire life. I also think about how a cab and a cup of coffee and a phone number tilted things just enough for someone to step off their axis. If you're looking for closure, I don't have it. I have snapshots. Bernice arguing with Pride volunteers while a gust of wind sends her papers cartwheeling down Church Street. My voicemail, light blinking. A cast worker's, careful voice. A woman I loved for half my life examining a bottle of fish sauce so she didn't have to examine me. And, on my kitchen counter right now, next to the fruit bowl, a little Lego indie minifig my husband found at a thrift store and thought would make me laugh. It did. I left it there. It reminds me that some obsessions are harmless. Some aren't. And we all get to decide which ones we'll let into our homes. Update 4. 3 weeks ago, at 2:11 am. Someone pounded on our door hard enough to rattle the chain. I was asleep, my husband was, too. On the porch, 2 officers, radios hissing. The older one held the notebook. We got a call about a wellness check, he said, and read from a screen like he didn't quite believe it. Concern that you're holding a woman named and then a name I recognized and a word that made my jaw lock, property. I stood in the glow from our entryway light, in bare feet, heartbeat in my ears, and said, no one is here. No one has been here. I showed them the text where she asked for a cab. I showed them the receipt. They apologized like people who have practiced apologizing. We're sorry to wake you, the older one said. We'll note the misuse. When they left, I put the chain back on with a hand that shook and watched the blue and red light smear once across our living room walls and then disappear. 2 days later, a letter landed in our mailbox that made me laugh because the envelope had a wax seal like we were in a costume drama. Inside, a printed notice telling me to cease and desist, with laws quoted that didn't apply to people with bus passes. The return address was a co-working space on Queen West, 3 blocks from a board game cafe where Bernice once heckled a teenager for pronouncing Ubisoft wrong. I let it sit on the kitchen table for an hour, then slid it into a folder with the rest of its screenshots, dates, that first Tim's receipt like slipping a leaf between pages so I could find my way back if I had to. I saw Anna again, not at a grocery store this time, but in a corridor that smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. Family court. I wasn't there for them, I'd come to swear a short affidavit for the cast worker who had called me. The sign over the counter said Family Law Information Center in Ariel, and there was a vending machine that only took 2 knees. I was headed for the elevators when the door opened and they stepped out. Bernice had made an effort, I'll give her that blazer, hair back, flats that were almost sensible. She carried a binder thicker than a phone book, tabs labeled with words you only learn after you've been to hell and back, consent, contract, discipline, schedule. The younger woman trailed behind, new haircut, a bruise the size of a coin fading under foundation on her jaw. Anna hood up again. The end of a brown ponytail tucked into her collar held a manila envelope and a reusable grocery bag like a tourist clutching a map. She looked at me and then looked down, as if eye contact might set off a sprinkler system. Bernice smiled. I've never liked that smile, it announces itself the way feedback announces itself. There she is, she said, as if she'd found a lost receipt. Our meddler. Before I could answer, a court officer blue shirt, badge, that particular patient stepped between us and said, ma'am, step back. No contact in the corridor. Bernice's voice turned syrupy. I'm just educating a community member about consent literacy. The officer didn't blink. The younger woman stared at the elevator numbers like she could move them faster with her mind. Anna's knuckles were white on the plastic handle. She didn't look up until the officer was guiding Bernice toward a bench and I was already moving away. Our eyes met for half a second, and it was all there, the script, the stage, the exit she couldn't take yet. That afternoon, I got a call from duty counsel asking if I'd be willing to make myself available if needed. You don't have to come in again, she said. A letter is fine. Stick to what you saw. I did. I used plain words, here are dates, here are places, here is who was present and sent it by email and then, because I've learned, printed a copy and put it in the folder. Hidden texted me a week later. She sent a photo of a plastic badge on a lanyard, her first name, a logo I recognized from the corner store I call on mornings when I forget milk, pronouns in parentheses. First shift today, she wrote. They said I can keep the headset even if my ears hurt because it's reasonable accommodation. I cried in the break room. Then, a second photo, a paper bag with a goldfish taped to the outside as a joke by one of her coworkers, hand-drawn with a smile. I texted back a thumbs up and a congratulations. She said, I used my old voice at the till and nobody flinched. I put my phone down and stared at the basil plant by the sink until the sun moved a centimeter on the counter. The younger woman, she has a name, and I won't put it here, didn't contact me. Someone else did, The volunteer from Pride, the one who had squared their shoulders and told Bernice no. They messaged me through a mutual friend and asked if we could meet for coffee. We did, this time at a cafe where the chairs were all different colors and the barista had a chip in her tooth that made her smile look like a wink. The volunteer showed me a small stack of flyers they collected from the Queer Center bulletin board, Bernice's house rules, photocopied crooked, each tear-off tab at the bottom with a phone number in tiny font. The center had taken them down. We're putting a protocol in place, the volunteer said. No kink recruitment on the community board. Resources only. No contracts. Their hand shook when they said it, from anger or adrenaline or caffeine. We should have done it years ago. I nodded. I didn't say anything about years. 2 nights after court, someone rang our doorbell at 10:43 at p.m. I knew it was her from the way she pressed it and then took her finger off like it had burned. I opened the door and there was Anna on our steps with a laundry basket. Not a suitcase, a blue plastic basket with a split on one side repaired with silver tape. Inside, towels, a pair of jeans, a hoodie I recognized from a decade ago when we used to live on free bar popcorn and cheap beer. She was out of breath, like she jogged the last block. Do you have quarters? She asked. The laundromat changed their system and I don't have any. I pointed to the ceramic bowl by the door where we keep change, and she looked at it like it was a bowl of pearls. I gave her a Ziploc full of loonies and a roll of quarters anyway because some laundromats stick to their principles. I can walk with you, I said. I won't come in. She nodded. We walked in silence past 3 houses with Halloween lights still up from last year. The laundromat smelled like heat and Lent. A fan in the corner churned stale air. There were signs in 3 languages taped over the machines: no rugs, no bedding, do not overload. A man in a neon safety vest slept snoring lightly on a plastic chair, hat over his face. Anna fed coins into a front loader with a practiced hand and stared at the soap blooming in the little window like a storm cloud. I kept thinking if I could be perfect, it would stop, she said finally. If I used the right word. If I put the glasses in the cabinet the way she wanted. If I didn't laugh too loud. If I laughed enough. She swallowed. The rules are a moving target. That's the trick. I leaned against a machine and nodded. The fluorescent lights buzzed like flying insects. A child's sock, tiny, striped, worked its way up against the rubber of the washer door and stuck there like a flag. When the wash cycle clicked over to rinse, she wiped her face with the sleeve of her hoodie and turned to me. I have a plan, she said. It's not good. It's not smart. It's what I can do. She told me where she would sleep that night. She told me who had an extra key. She told me the name of the legal aid lawyer who answered the phone on the second ring and said, "Okay. We can work with this." She didn't ask me for money. I didn't offer it. I gave her the number for the shelter again on a post-it, the edges of the pad gummy with use. She took it like it was heavier than it was. "Don't call me," she said. "Not because I don't want you to. Because if you do, she'll see it." We stood there and watched the spin cycle. I wish I could tell you she walked out of that laundromat and right into a soft landing. She did, and I know because 2 days later, at 4:03 at p.m., my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize, and when I answered, all I heard was her breathing for a full 10 seconds and then, "It's worse before it's better." Then she hung up. I let the silence sit there until it felt like another person in the room. The next morning, I went to put my change back in the ceramic bowl and found the roll of quarters gone and, tucked under the bowl, a sticky note in Anna's handwriting, sharp, precise letters like always. "I'll bring them back," it said. "I swear." I laughed, which felt like breaking glass in a good way. I don't need the quarters. I kept the note. 2 small things that feel like big things. Kitten sent a picture of a kitten, not a nickname, an actual cat with a crooked tail and a bell on its collar that, she wrote, she can't take off at night because she wants it quiet. And the cast worker called to say, in the careful tone that means both everything and nothing, "The file is open. There's a safety plan in place." That's all I can tell you. I said thank you. I don't know if I meant it for the call or for the plan or for the thin line we all have to hold when anything more would snap. If you're waiting for the scene where Bernice is arrested or unmasked or issue a cosmic comeuppance, I don't have it. What I have is a note under a change bowl, a wax seal envelope that I fed into the shredder and then immediately regretted because my folder likes original artifacts, a glimpse of a hallway where people debate the shape of a life under fluorescent lights. I have a cab receipt with a coffee stain, a basil plant going leggy in a pot, a Lego indie minifig that now stands on the window ledge above our sink, next to a Ziploc bag of loonies. When the sun hits them in the late afternoon, the plastic adventurer throws a heroic little shadow that climbs the side of the basil pot, and the coins gleam like something you could trade for clean clothes and an hour to breathe. That feels like the right currency for now.